who appreciates getting constructive feedback and encouraging feedback. Is this something you would like to learn how to do? Steph Wise understands the importance of giving great feedback and has honed the skill over the last 6 years as a Toastmaster, having competed on the district stage for speech evaluation as well as in her professional career. She is a consultant and trainer and leads a global team of just over 2,000 partners. She is a mom of a charming 13-year-old son of whom she loves adventuring with. She leads with her heart and strives to inspire people to become better versions of themselves. She has held many roles where feedback has come into play, and she is here to talk to us today about the value of feedback and how we can all learn to give feedback to motivate. Over to you, Steph.
Has anyone ever told you something that made you feel really good? Like, really good? So much so that maybe it made your entire day or inspired you to go out and take action right away. Or how about being told something that really ticked you off? Maybe ticked you off, maybe didn't feel so good. And maybe it wasn't meant in that context. You found out later they didn't mean it that way, or that's not how it was supposed to come out. Both feedback, two very different feelings with varying impacts as well. So think about how this applies to our lives. In the workplace, feedback is valued. People want feedback to learn and to be recognized and to be appreciated and also to know where they can improve. As a partner or friend, we want to be able to give the people that we love constructive feedback to improve the quality of our relationships. As coaches, you will have a greater impact with your team when you provide great feedback. So that's where what we're going to learn and practice today, specifically in the context of speech evaluations, as all of you will be practicing a speech. Then you'll have the opportunity to evaluate each other and putting the practice of putting a speech evaluation together and delivering that for one of your peers. But as we go through this presentation today, I want you to think about all the areas and how this can apply to your life, and think about the art of giving great feedback and how that can affect your lives and others in a positive way. So today we're going to talk about the who, the what, and the how of giving feedback. So who benefits from motivating feedback? We all start somewhere, right? Regardless of what stage we're at, if we're just starting our journey of personal development or we're a little bit more experienced, we all need to have that baseline to improve and also motivation to keep going. Evaluations are really important, not just to the speaker, but there are other beneficiaries as well in the context of Toastmasters and practicing with public speaking. The audience member, all of us here today, can learn from the feedback that's given, perhaps incorporating some of the tips or tricks into your own speeches later on down the line or your own coaching. The evaluator develops skills by listening, impromptu speaking. So you're listening to a speech, you're writing down some points, and you're delivering a mini speech, essentially giving feedback to that person. But you don't really have a lot of time to prepare, so you're doing it in an impromptu way. And of course, the evaluator benefits by giving feedback and learning how to do that very well. And of course, as speakers, we all have the opportunity to receive feedback, to know what to improve on, to know if we're achieving the objectives we set out to feel encouraged, and to be appreciated for our progress and building and maintaining self-esteem. So I want you all to think back for a second, back to, I think it was November 2nd, when we started this journey together. Correct me if I'm wrong on the date. Doesn't really matter. Day two of this series, I guess day 2 of the series, where you delivered your first speech and you all got feedback on your first speech. How did that feel after you got that evaluation from your mentor? Type in the chat for me. How did it feel to get feedback on your first speech, when for most of you, this is probably the first time you've ever done anything like this, right? Did it feel good? Did you feel encouraged to come back again and do the next one? Or were you left feeling like, oh, geez, I don't know if I can do this anymore, right? So that's what we always strive to do, is to provide encouraging and motivating feedback so that our members and people that we're working with are encouraged to come back for the next one. So that is the who. The what is the responsibility of the evaluator, is what I'm going to talk about next. The responsibility of the evaluator is to provide constructive and encouraging feedback with the goal to motivate the speaker to return again. Sounds simple, right? A couple of things to think about as we get ready to do this. Number one, prepare. So this is where you want to consider the skill level of the speaker. Now, we might not get a chance here to do this today, but in the future, as we've mentioned before, part of this curriculum is membership at our club to continue your progress with us. So for future opportunities, you'll have this option. You can actually connect with the speaker in advance. So when we are in our regular meetings, we have people that sign up for prepared speeches in the agenda, and then we always have a speech evaluator that's assigned to evaluate the speaker. So as the evaluator, if you know you're evaluating someone's speech, you can reach out to them in advance and see if they have any concerns. Do they have anything specific that they want to address? Do they have any crutches or quirks? Do they use their notes a lot? Do they talk with their hands like I do a little bit? Are you progressing? As you progress with us beyond today, we arrange those roles, and you'll have that opportunity to check in with the speaker to see if there's something specific to watch out for based on their style, based on their skill level and expertise. The other responsibility of the evaluator is to listen. Showing that you're interested during the speech is also really important, especially when we're new evaluators. Trying to scribble down everything, every little word that they say in their speech is not the best use of our time, because we're busy writing away instead of listening and really observing the presentation of their speech and what the message is that we're trying to take away from the speaker. So my suggestion for this part is to have a sheet of paper laid out in advance, and you could copy this if you want. It's pretty simple, right? So you have the title, objectives, purpose, a plus or minus. So that's for things they're doing well and things they could improve, their points and conclusion. So if you have just a one-pager like this before you evaluate someone's speech, as they're speaking, you can just jot down some words, some triggers that you can come back to, some things that really stood out for you, what you captured from their presentation. And then when you go back to collect your thoughts, you've got a few point forms that you can put your evaluation together. A good guideline to put that together, but not too much that it's distracting you from actually listening to their speech in entirety. Now, a couple of things to look out for, because sometimes when we're new evaluators or someone is very experienced at speaking, it may be not that easy to pick out some things to provide something constructive, because if we think, wow, that's amazing, and they did everything amazing, then that's great. But we always want to look for something that they can improve, not necessarily something that they did wrong or that they did poorly, but even for someone that has experience, what's something they could do better, right? So here's a few categories to think about. Number one, vocal variety. Was there any? Did they use it to enhance their message? Did they use it effectively? Or could you barely hear them? Look for specific places in their speech where they could improve, or something that they did really well to accentuate the impact of their message. Movement, using gestures. While we're in this virtual world, we're dealing with this little box, right? So it's a little bit different than speaking in person, where we have a stage or we can move around, we can move our bodies. So being aware of this little box is helpful, but sometimes you could move a bit closer to build the anticipation, that could be an example, or moving far away, or using the screen to your advantage to accentuate the message. So those are things, that's for movement, that's what you want to look for in the person delivering their speech. Language. Is it easy to understand? If there's something a little bit more technical? The use of descriptive words and colorful language to tell a story is a really great place where you could highlight some things where if someone really brought you in with the language that they use, giving examples of that. Organization, how is their speech organized? What was their flow of ideas? Could you see clearly the structure and the flow that they were trying to bring you through? And did they tie everything together nicely with a powerful conclusion? What about appeal or interest? Was it something that you could relate to? Was there something that made you think of in your own life, right? You can bring that into your evaluation as well. Was it interesting content? Did it leave you with a call to action and inspire you to think or act in a different way? So during the speech, you want to keep those things in mind to identify the elements that stood out for you apart from the objectives of their speech in the delivery and content. And if someone, one of our Toastmasters has it handy, if you could pop the evaluation form in the chat, you'll notice that a lot of the criteria that we, in our standard evaluation form, vocal variety, gestures, content, they're all listed there. I'm just recapping it. So use that as a reference as you think about your evaluations for today. Now, how do we evaluate effectively? It's really important to personalize this. Your evaluation of someone's speech is your own opinion. Someone else may have a different opinion. It's your own perspective in how that speech made you feel, in how it impacted you with what you saw, and also with what you heard. So again, someone else's experience and their evaluation may be very different than yours because it's our own perspective and our own opinion. Choosing the words carefully and your language is extremely important especially when we're evaluating newer Toastmasters or people starting their journey, because again, we want to make sure that it's encouraging and motivating and using language that supports their development wherever they're at. So you're not saying words like, you didn't do this, or you should have done that, or you failed to, avoiding those absolute statements such as never or always. Rather, emphasizing what your reaction was. Wow, Camille, when you introduced me with that perfect bio, that made me really feel special. Like I hadn't written it myself, that I didn't write it myself. Just kidding. There's an example. You made me feel like blank. You know, how did you react when someone shared something, personal in their story? How did that component of their speech make you feel? Or another example, I think you could enhance your speech next time by saying this. So choosing the right words to encourage and lift them up, giving them an example of how they could enhance it. It's not a matter of making it good or bad or like from bad to good. It's how can you make it better, right? How can you give them a little tip that will just make it a little bit better and enhance? I love the word enhanced. What you saw, what you heard, and what you felt is the key thing that you want to remember here. And remember that you're evaluating the speech, not the person. So sometimes the content of speeches delivered can present some judgment or some bias if they're not in alignment with our own beliefs, right? So you want to make sure you have an unbiased perspective and you are evaluating how they delivered the speech and how they achieved their objectives. So in the example today, you guys are going to be delivering your speech on vocal variety and gestures. So when you deliver your speeches, but as the evaluator, you want to be looking at where they demonstrated vocal variety and gestures. That's the main objective of the speech, right? So I'd also like you to think about your own format. So the format in presenting your evaluation, I'm just going to share my screen real quick. Can everyone see the sandwich? Okay. So here's an example of a great format. This is a great framework for your evaluation. So first thing you want to start out by thanking them for their speech. And that's your intro, right? You want to set the stage and tie it back into the speech. So was there something that really spoke to you and grabbed your attention? What were their objectives and what were you paying attention to in the speech? The content, the body, I guess the content or the body of it is like the sandwich, right? So you want to start with something positive, start with a good. If it was good, why was it good? Have a couple things that caught your attention, something they did well. And then you want to have a constructive piece. So not just pointing out something that was missed or could do better, but showing them how they can improve it. So it's not enough to say, you should have used your notes less. Take it a step further and say, I noticed you relied on your notes quite a bit during your speech. For next time, what I might suggest is, instead of having them here and looking at them, just glance down to get your point and then look back up at the camera to emphasize your point and continue talking. That way you're never going to break your attention and focus with your audience. Can you see how that specific feedback would be a little bit more impactful, right? And could vary significantly between evaluators. So the sandwich is great to open with a positive, have your constructive, and then ending on a high note, something that they can kind of keep with them, and it's always a good idea to end on a high note. So you want to be specific, showing them how, ending with the positive and what stood out for you. And you also want to avoid being disingenuous. Don't say it was great if it wasn't great. You're not doing anyone any favors by doing that, right? We're all here to be open and receiving feedback to get better. So being honest and being genuine with your evaluation is really important. And there are tactful ways to be encouraging in any case, even if it wasn't a great speech. But don't say something that's not true, or just to try to fill the evaluation space. And your closing, you want to connect to your opening statement. You want to summarize your points. What's the bigger picture? Is there a bigger message or call to action from their speech? Is there something that inspires you to think a little bit differently, or that makes you want to take action in a different way? You want to encourage the audience to learn from the speaker, saying something like, we can all learn from this example where Camille introduced me as a fantastic evaluator, whatever. I'm just picking on you, Camille, because you're the chair for today. So we can all learn from this example. So give a specific example where we can all learn from. And that kind of brings us to the end, in closing your speech, closing the evaluation, again, connecting to it just the way we would in a normal speech that you prepared. You want to summarize your points. And that brings us to closing of our session, or the educational for today. And I want you to think about how this art of giving feedback can apply to your lives. I hope you took some notes to remember this for the evaluations you're going to give in a little bit. And I hope that I've answered the questions for you that I set out to in this session. Who benefits? What is our responsibility? And how can we deliver and conclude it effectively? You now have the tools to conduct your first evaluation and provide some feedback to motivate for your peers. Are you ready? Back to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Steph, for that awesome presentation. Wow. Doesn't matter how many years